Hey everyone, it's Shiloh Carosa, author of The Exile and the Misadventures of Melvin the Missing Sock. And today I have a very special interview I want to share with you that I conducted with the newly published 17-year-old author, Saania Saxena. Saania is based in the United Arab Emirates, and she and I actually connected over blogging a little over a year ago. We've stayed in touch ever since. She actually reached out because she was looking at publishing a book and she had some questions she wanted to have answered. So I gave her what information I could and we've stayed in touch ever since. Her book is called The Teenage Chronicles. And as you'll see in a minute here in our interview, it covers a lot of the questions that young adults are facing as they come into maturity and just try to figure out what's going on in their brains. So I highly recommend you check this out. It is going to be available internationally on Kindle. It's August right now, so this month it will be available. Right now it's only available in India, the UAE, and I think the UK as well. But I will be posting that link for you to purchase her book on my website, as well as on this channel. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the interview.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you for watching this interview with the author, Saania. You got to help me with your last name. Is it Saxena?
Saxena.
Saxena. Okay, Saania Saxena. Saania and I actually connected over blogging, and she has this really cool blog called Fun with Philosophy, which is just that. It is a fun take on a lot of philosophical questions that I gotta be honest, I have not heard a 17-year-old ask before. So that gives away the fact, the fun fact that Saania is 17 and she is a newly published author. So kudos to her for that. Yeah, and I just want to jump right in and give you a feel for what Saania has done, what she got her inspiration from, and yeah, what her book is really all about. But first, I want to let her fill in any details. We know each other from blogging, but we live on literally opposite sides of the globe. So yeah, take it away, Saania, and tell us about you.
Hi everyone, I'm Saania and I'm currently 17, turned 17 this year, and I've lived in 5 different countries and I'm currently in the UAE. And yeah, Teenage Chronicles is my first published work, so it's all really exciting and I can't wait to dig in deeper.
Here we go. So that is Saania. Now, here's the big question. What on earth is Teenage Chronicles and what's it all about? Why did you even write this thing?
The Teenage Chronicles, it's basically an honest reflection of my personal teenage journey, where I have been like really introspective about some really baffling and basic, yet basic human emotions, and really tried to like come to terms with them. When you have things like jealousy, insecurity, anger, and even intense emotions like love, I feel like emotional awareness is what helps us know what we need and what we want, or even what we don't want. And it helps us build like better relationships with ourselves and even with the ones around us. So in this book, I've really tried to come to terms with and where exactly those emotions are coming from. And for instance, like if I find like I'm rude to someone, it's often not because I'm a rude person. It's normally because I've actually written this down in my book in the chapter Anger. I said, what manifests itself as anger is usually a plethora of many other deeper negative emotions like stress, envy, anxiety. So I've come to like terms with a lot of emotions such as anger. This was just an example. So it's basically like 10 different chapters for 10 enigmatic human emotions that I hope my readers can also relate to.
Yeah, and actually I do want to add, this is one of the things that when I was reading one of the excerpts from her book, she reached out earlier on in the process when you were kind of looking at how to go about the publishing process. Actually, Saania sent me over some bits and pieces of her work, and it was really interesting because I had read a lot of self-help books before, but I had never read something that looked at it from literally every angle possible. So you have the psychological angle, the scientific angle, the sociological angle, the philosophical angle. And I have to say that I was just really blown away with how thorough your research was. And there's diagrams in there to make sense of the more abstract, brainy concepts, especially because we're talking to teenagers. So like, it needs to make sense. It needs to be connectable to the real world. So that really stood out to me in your approach to this particular topic. Yeah, so then I got to ask you, what did you personally learn from the process of writing this book?
So I think the very first thing that I learned was an entire rainbow of things about myself. I think writing in general allows you to really go into the depths of your own mind and really pick out on emotions that you wouldn't normally even wouldn't have even discovered. So I did discover them, and I sat down and actually started to write the book. And I think writing a book in general as a whole allows you to connect with yourself. Um, Another thing I would say is that I've always bathed in the glory of 100%. But then when I became an author, it was like, where's the 100%? Where is the ceiling? When will this ever be perfect? In my life, I've always I've found an error, and I would like feel shameful whenever I made a mistake. My heart would like be broken. But about a year and hundreds of mistakes later, I've realized that perfection, it's like a thing that really suffocates learning. And I talk about this in my book too. It's like almost like a destination wherein we'll never truly arrive. Like in the real world, there is no ceiling. So one thing I learned was that once I learned to see past this own conditioned fear, I realized that imperfection, it's actually a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, Another thing I learned that is that writing a book isn't always the hard part. I used to think that writing a book is the only thing that I had to do. But honestly, like writing it was easy. All you have to do is sit down, find your muse, find your inspiration, and your source of inspiration, and then let your thoughts flow. What's hard is putting it in the public eye, facing your own issues of like self-worth, responding to criticism and critics and people judging your work for the first time, learning from failure. And that, I think, it's a whole journey on its own. So many lessons to learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you say about the war with perfectionism, because I too am a perfectionist. I think a lot of writers actually
A lot of them, yeah.
are perfectionists, and there's the fear of, I'm not ready to start writing this because I don't know everything that I have to know in order to start writing. So I actually want to throw in this question as well. When did you in the process actually start putting words on paper for this book? Did you have all of your research done ahead of time, or did you find yourself, you're like, I just got to start writing and I'll fill in the gaps as I go?
So before I started to write, I took like a lot of, because I knew it would take like a lot of effort. So spent a lot of my months kind of just asking my friends who are also teenagers, what are they going through? I did like surveys and questionnaires, like, what do you feel as a teenager? Like, do you feel the same things that I do? So that was pretty effective, because now when they read my book, they're like, I see myself in your position. I've been through this. I go through the exact same thing, and you're not alone. So yeah.
Awesome.
And then I also got like a lot of feedback from authors like you, really helpful, who read through my work and gave me feedback, which is always a good thing.
Good. Yeah, it sounds like it was a pretty interactive process, like, because you were actually talking to people in the thick of it. So
yeah.
Wow. So a little bit of background on the way the story works, or it's not really a story, but it kind of is. It's a book that has 5 characters, and those characters all embody different personalities that are common for teenagers, or really for anyone, but just they're all teenagers at this stage in their lives. And the way you go about laying out the chapters is you address like a particular scenario that each of these characters has to cope with. And so out of all those characters, which of those do you personally relate to the most, if any of them?
I'd say I think Bella for the most, because she's studious. She's also really introspective. She's often nervous around people like I am. And then I also relate to some parts of Emma, because she's friendly. She always wants to be there for her friends, whoever needs her help. And she also loves animals in the same way in which I do. But unfortunately, I don't own a dog like her. She owns Apricot. Yeah.
So how did you decide to come up with characters as a way of sharing this information?
Well, I felt like like young readers, they don't like the first thing that they would want to read is not really a bunch of lessons. And I feel like bringing in that perfect mix of fiction to the nonfiction would make it a lot more exciting, and also get to see like the experiences a little more clearly than just like my words.
And reading that, I thought it was very effective, because some of the other books I read that were actually for teenagers, they would give little anecdotes, but it wasn't like following one person throughout the course of the book, which I think is maybe a more effective way to do that. Because if you as a reader identify with one person, you want to see how that person responds to all these different things. So I thought that was brilliant, actually. So which of the chapters did you find hardest to write?
I think the chapter that was the hardest to write was also the one that was the closest to my heart, which is the very first chapter, which is insecurities. I talked about some things in that chapter that I haven't even told like some of my closest friends, and I even often like contemplated whether I wanted to put it in the book or not. But ultimately I came to realize that, you know, like no one in the world is built perfectly, and the first step to overcome any of the insecurities that you have is to accept them, and then you can obviously find the ways in which you can grow as a person. And I've always had this like fear of not being good enough or just not being enough, which definitely made it hard to write about, but it also made me understand where exactly those feelings come from. And so even though that process of writing this chapter was an emotional one, it kind of made me listen and understand, listen to and understand to the critical voice inside me and get at the bottom of it. I actually remember that I came to you for advice for this chapter, and you said, no matter how hard we try, we can't really fix ourselves. And the wonderful truth that should drive away all the insecurity is that we're all flawed in some way or the other. So yeah.
And that's
actually,
actually,
I feel like that's something everyone needs to hear, no matter how old they are.
yeah, it's true. We're broken beings, and we cannot fix our brokenness. Thankfully, there is someone who can. But going off of the idea of you mentioned the internal critical voice. So with that, how has it been receiving literary criticism? What has that been like for you? I guess like it's kind of a three-pronged question. What are some of the kinds of feedback you've gotten? How do you handle just the incoming criticism? And then how do you think that actually ties back to the ideas in your book of what it's like to receive criticism and how to battle, negative voices in your head?
I think with literary criticism, none of our lives are free from criticism. And as a writer, especially, I have to remember that the act of writing in itself is a very, very vulnerable one. When you're being on a public platform and in front of the public eye, I'm inevitably going to get judgments and criticisms, and it may not always feel good. It doesn't always feel good. But ultimately, I feel like it's up to the writer to use their common sense and knowledge of the work or the story or whatever they've written to choose which criticisms mean well and which criticisms might and won't improve their work. And with literary criticism, I feel like it's only made my writing better. As I said before I've written this book, I have a blog, obviously. And in my blog for a couple of years, a lot of people would tell me that your writing's great, but it lacks a personal kind of touch, and like you say everything but you don't really put your own personal experiences into it. And ever since I took that advice into consideration, I've only seen myself like flourish as a writer, if anything. And I even incorporated this into my book by writing a lot of personal experiences wherever I could. And so, yeah, I think with criticism in any way, I feel like we need to learn how to accept it or ignore it, and how to like rise above the negative feelings that it may instill upon us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now have you heard back from young people who are reading your book and they're like finding it beneficial? What kind of reaction have you gotten so far?
I think for some chapters, not all, they said like it's a little bit to like not the language in which a teenager would normally speak in. Like I might have used a little bit like technical words somewhere. So that's definitely something that I've received so far. The one of the main things, yeah.
Sure. Your vocabulary though is get out of this world for I keep coming back to she's 17. She's 17. And she sounds like a scholar. So I mean that is, you know what though? There are times when young people need to just learn from other young people. I mean, it's one thing if they're gonna talk to someone who's like, 40 years old and that person's gonna
Yeah.
tell them what's up and try to teach them. Teenagers often just like shut off to that. So I feel like it's perfect that you coming in as one of them, having done your research, you have the facts. It sets you up in a unique position to influence and actually get through to young people who are dealing with things that we've all dealt with. It's just that sometimes
Yeah.
5-year-olds forget that they've dealt with that. So opportunity to speak directly to these young people that you have and the way you're using that is really inspiring. So question, having published your first book now, which was released in June, you said June 18th?
June 28th.
June 20, okay, this summer. Yeah, so having gone through that, what would be some of your advice to other writers, maybe people who they want to publish, but they're not sure about it, or maybe someone who's going through the process? What would you say to them?
So first of all, the advice for writing, I think you should really have fun with it, because if you're having fun with it, the reader will have fun, and that's what you'll bring into the reader's mind. And you should write because you love to write. Like I wrote because I love to write, and love is what sort of powered me to write this book. And also you should know that if you write a book, then there's no guarantee. You have to love what you do, because if for any reason things don't work out and it doesn't meet like the world of writing in the public eye, you still have to love the writing process in itself, and there'll be so many learnings to learn from, no matter how challenging and even miserable it might be after it meets like the public eye. For publishing, I would say the best time to there's like a golden rule. The best time to start like promoting your book is like 3 years before it comes out. 3 years to build like the reputation, to build a blog or a following, and then build the connections with the people you'll need later on. I feel like that's so helpful. And then another thing I would say is the biggest mistake that I see a lot of writers make is that they try to sound like other authors instead of trying to sound like themselves. So, and I feel like there are a lot of different reasons for why this happens. Like maybe one might be insecure, maybe they may be inexperienced, or maybe they just don't know clearly what they want to put out to the world. So I think what you need to have, I think all of us see the world in such a unique and different way, and no one sees the world in quite the same way in which you do. So writing is a process, as I said before, where you get to learn a lot about yourself. So I feel like you need to find that own unique thing about you that is not trying to be like anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being authentic, because there's a degree to which you can learn from other writers and you can imitate certain things, but it is dangerous if you're trying to copy, copy someone. People say steal from the greats all the time. I think what they mean is steal ideas, not steal like their entire voice, because we'll never all sound like Mark Twain, as awesome as that would be. But Twain is a person. So anyways, so lastly, where is your book available right now? And then when will it be more available to everyone around the world?
Yeah, so currently it's available in India, in the UAE and the UK, like all over the UK. And this month I'm looking to have it available as a Kindle version so that anyone around the world will be able to buy it, hopefully.
Okay, fantastic. And once that Kindle version goes up, all my viewers, I will be posting that, because this is a book that you should check out, especially if you have young people in your family, or if you yourself are a young person. This is just, I mean, I'm technically still a young person. I am still a young person. I'm not a teenager, but I'm still going to order the book because it's a really good book. So there you go. Well, yeah, that really covers anything I had to ask. Do you have any other comments you want to add for anyone watching right now?
No, I think that covered pretty much it. And I also want to thank you for this lovely opportunity.
You're very welcome. Thank you for reaching out and for connecting. And yeah, if any of you viewers enjoyed this, please feel free to go ahead and share this. Also subscribe to the channel, and yeah, check out Saania's blog. It's called Fun with Philosophy. You just look it up. I think it's on WordPress, which is the platform I use as well. So yeah, check it out for sure, and you'll get some good stuff out of it.
All right, folks, that concludes my interview with Saania. I want to thank you very much for watching. Go ahead, check out her blog, Fun with Philosophy, and stay tuned. I will be posting the link for you to buy her book on my website as well as on this channel. Thanks again. Hope y'all are doing well, and I will talk with you again soon.